Well, joining us now live from Adelaide to delve more into this is Managing Director of CCL Consultants, Bronwyn Gallacher. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as we saw, the economy grew, but at a slower pace, and we also saw some strong profits for businesses. So what's your reaction to this latest Australian data?
Well, it's interesting to see that we've also had unemployment rates falling to 5.4% as a result of employment increasing across all states and territories of Australia. We've also seen growth in terms of non-mining business investment, and that's really due to debt servicing costs being at a historic low in Australia. And we've also witnessed public investment projects being pursued by a number of state and federal governments. So that's in terms of road upgrades in Australia, which hopefully will have a positive flow-over effect for private investment. Having said that, there's always a however, obviously, in the economy. As you mentioned, we've seen retail sales weak, which translates into low household consumption levels in Australia. Also, wage growth has been stagnant in Australia for quite some time, and we've also seen the Federal Court of Australia upholding a decision of our Fair Work Commission, and that relates to cutting penalty rates for retail and hospitality workers. So we're unlikely to see significant wage increases in 2018. And as you mentioned, retail house prices, and certainly in Melbourne and Sydney, have eased in the last quarter. And most importantly, we can't turn a blind eye to the impact of rising energy costs here in Australia. This has put a significant and notable impact on households and also businesses. And we've seen numerous states trying to really tackle this issue, and they're really trying to tackle it also in different ways. First of all, we've seen in Queensland, the government there approving the construction of a coal mine known as Adani, even though coal prices are increasing. Whereas in South Australia, we've seen the government embracing renewables, such as via the establishment of Tesla, the battery plant, which is the world's largest lithium-ion battery storage plant in the world, which was opened last week.
Let's break down some of these issues so that our viewers can kind of stay on track. Let's start with household consumption, which we saw was the weakest actually since the global financial crisis. Why are consumers tightening their purse strings at the moment?
Going back to the point about wages, we've seen the point of stagnant wage growth here in Australia and the impact that the energy prices have had on household budgets. And it's putting a significant strain, and obviously in the build-up to the Christmas period, having an impact on Christmas spending.
And what would you say are the most pressing economic priorities for Australians?
Definitely tackling this energy crisis, given we're seeing varying approaches across states and territories, and really needing to tackle this issue about this energy crisis, given its impact on households and business input costs.
And in terms of Australia's economic strengths and weaknesses as you start to look ahead, what are the standouts for you?
The standouts are obviously investment in terms of non-service industries, because we've seen investment levels at an all-time high as a result of interest rates being at 1.5%. So there's quite a lot of business opportunities in that regard. But going back to my comments, being very mindful of the fact that we need to resolve this energy crisis here in Australia in order to cut significant costs to businesses in 2018.
Now, several countries are waiting to see what's going to happen with the US tax plan and what it could mean for them. What could it potentially mean for Australia?
Well, what it will certainly mean is that it will have a notable impact on businesses in obviously the technology and health space. However, these impacts really will be at the fringe, given that we've seen this year the federal government introduce a tax cut in Australia for small to medium enterprises from 30% to 28% in Australia. And this is quite important, considering that only 3% of businesses in Australia have 20 or more employees. So that's been a notable impact in terms of these tax concessions. But where we need to see significant changes taking place in Australia is greater support for small businesses.
All right, thank you so much. Bronwyn Gallacher there, Managing Director of CCL Consultants.